Maui was humbling, but some of the nonsense I'm seeing has to stop. You're locked on UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a quick moment to say thank you for everything that everyone's doing for this show, listening, following, telling your friends. The podcast has grown so much, and it's because of fans like you, especially to my everydayers. Thank you so much, and we love that you value great UConn content. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering both UConn men's and women's basketball, the basketball capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. So to show our gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to the Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games, and we're also making monthly donations to Bleeding Blue for Good, supporting NIL initiatives that make a difference. If you're enjoying the show, take a moment to subscribe, follow, and leave a review wherever you listen. Thanks again for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We couldn't do this without you. Okay, so let's dive into all of this. First things first, UConn season isn't over. Despite all the chatter on social media, this team is far from done. Yes, going 0-3 in Maui stings, and it was extremely unexpected. The jokes I heard about a three-peat in the losing streak are clever, and I see you. But let's take a step back. We can either overreact or we can look at the situation with perspective. These losses, while frustrating, are bumps in the road, not the end of the road. It's November 29th. I want to address something specific I saw floating around UConn chats, the Twitter sphere, all of that. And it was like, something to the effect of, I need coach to shut up about the refs and the media. I need parents to stop complaining about minutes. I need players to stop acting like shocked at every foul call. They're not boxing out or closing out on defense. All of that, like the whole shut up and fix it crew. Let's unpack that. First of all, this kind of comment is unnecessary and incredibly childish. It boils down to fans asking Dan Hurley to stop being Dan Hurley because they're upset about losing a few games. That's not how this works. Dan Hurley is exactly who he always has been: fiery, emotional, and unapologetically himself, authentic, the way you like it. You don't get to love that passion when you're winning championships and throwing it in people's faces and then turn on it when the results aren't what you want because all of your Twitter mentions are blowing up and people are talking smack to you. And the same goes for the players. Sure, there are things to fix, but these are kids playing their hearts out for a program they believe in and that you supposedly love. Acting like they should flip a switch and magically be perfect ignores the incredibly human element of this game. Let's address the Maui Invitational as a whole. Dan Hurley said it best. Our defense was dreadful, just so dreadful. He's not sugarcoating it, and neither will I. Multiple things can be true at the same time. Yes. Are there disciplinary issues on defense? 100%. Dan even said that's bad coaching, and it's on him. So it's led to silly fouls and costly mistakes. Yes, the officiating in Maui was inconsistent and terrible at best, and that compounded those issues. It exacerbated it, if you will. And yes, the results of those two truths was 3 losses. This is also where I think we need a reality check. Fans, parents, media need to remember that these aren't fantasy football players or basketball players that you can just swap in and out based on a hunch, based on what you think is the way to go. Hurley and his staff are making decisions based on what they believe gives this team the best chance to win, not based on whims or Twitter posts or whatever. Sometimes those bets aren't going to pay off, like with Aiden Mahaney, who hasn't performed as expected. That doesn't mean we give up on him. It means we let him work in the background to regain his confidence and ability. Maybe he plays less. He certainly played less in the Dayton game. And I'm sure people are like, well, what would you do? If I was in charge, sure, I might tweak the lineup a little bit. I'd love to see Hassan Diarra at the 1, Liam McNeely at the 2, Jalen at the 3, Alex Karaban at the 4, Terrace at the 5. I'd bring Solo off the bench for instant offense. Keep rotations bigger to avoid 2 small guard lineups. Ahmad Noel might move ahead of Aiden in the rotation now. And I'd also use Samson Johnson sparingly when we need an energy boost without having to rely on him heavily because of his foul issues. So if he gets 3 or 4 fouls in a span of 10 or 12 minutes in a game, doesn't matter because you spaced it out. But even with those adjustments, it's clear this identity of the team has to shift back to defense. We can score. Cool. But I don't think we need to worry about the perfect offensive sets for a moment and get a player on the court who can defend. Stay disciplined, avoid silly fouls. If that means simplifying roles for guys like Jay Ross or Isaiah Abraham getting a couple minutes here and there to focus solely on defense and rebounding, so be it. This team needs to get gritty again. It doesn't matter what I think at all. And honestly, anybody that comments, it doesn't matter what we think as a collective. It matters what the team does to get it fixed. And I trust Dan and company 100%. But I get it. Fans are frustrated because this team isn't playing the way we know they can and saw the last 2 seasons. Visually pleasing, great flowing basketball. And honestly, I get that there are valid concerns. And I'll also say, if you continue wanting to have the hard line of, I want the coach to do this, I want the players to do that, and really kind of be as negative about it as possible, can't stop you. And I don't think me calling it out is gonna stop it either. So it is what it is, man. You can fan how you want to fan. I just think it makes us look really ridiculous when we're out there pumping our chests about how good we are. But then at the same time, you're looking internally to make these changes and getting mad at them and also essentially making things up. Like the idea that the parents were complaining about minutes and yelling at the coaches, that's just 100% not true. And that perpetuated another Twitter post that led to people where a parent actually had to come in and say, that's not true. That's not what UConn basketball is about. Lock it up. It's ridiculous. Hurley himself, after the tournament, said, our defense has been dreadful, right? But he didn't stop there. He owned up to it, pointing out discipline issues, positional things that they're going to work on when they get back on the mainland, which is obviously now. He knows this isn't just about a bad whistle. It's about fixing what's within their control. So here's my perspective. This isn't the time to start tearing down the coaches we just talked about. Players, the program, the sky is not falling, Chicken Little. This is the time to rally behind them. Hurley hasn't built something incredible. He didn't build something incredible at UConn just so one rough stretch can erase that. That's Duke fans talking. That's, all the Linsanity BS that they talk about. Critique is fine. It's part of being a fan, but let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. And also own it. Like everyone that's in my mentions, talking smack to me or in my YouTube comments, I'm sure I'm going to get more after this video. I applaud it. Bring it. If I've been cocky, I'm literally pulling back on it because I don't think this team is very good right now. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stop covering them or making predictions or talking about them in a positive way. It's stupid. And let's talk about Dan himself, because the social media world is losing its mind. It's not deflecting. He's not deflecting blame. He's taking ownership. He's the same guy that you guys love. This is a coach who has built a program from what other teams now circle on their calendar as the game to win. You don't think Colorado and Memphis are literally hanging banners because that was their Super Bowl? Of course they are. And let's not overlook the craziest thing of all. When everyone was moaning and groaning about, Dan and how bad we were in 0-3, come to find out that Alex Karaban got a concussion in the Dayton game, and he had to be hospitalized. So thankfully, he was able to leave with the team, and he didn't, have any major injuries. But I mean, that's scary stuff, guys. And honestly, I'm so over everyone being, pissed off about the 0-3 start in the Maui. Because if you imagine a season without Alex Karaban, we're going to lose a hell of a lot more games. So we're lucky to have him on the road to recovery. I don't know if he's going to play tomorrow. We'll see if he's cleared, but likely, if he misses, that's why. So here we are. Tough Maui trip in the books, a team with issues to address, but also the talent to fix it and the leadership to bounce back in Dan Hurley and his staff. Adjustments are coming. And on top of that, so will wins. But for now, take a deep breath. They're playing another bye game, which will be a win. I know people are like frustrated with their out of conference schedule. Spare me. It's going to get ridiculously tough next week. And in this next segment, we're going to tackle the media outrage surrounding Hurley and why much of it is completely overblown. So make sure you stick around. There's nothing like being at a game, feeling the energy of the crowd, the sound of the sneakers, the yelling on the court, the adrenaline that your favorite team hits that buzzer beater. Can't imagine what it was like when Solo tied the game in overtime to go into overtime against Memphis, whether it's, spotting celebrities like Penfield we saw in the crowd all game. But let's break it down. It's better live. Let me tell you about Game Time and the new Game Time Picks features, which takes all the hassle out of finding tickets. Game Time Picks helps you find and filter out so it can show you the best deals on great seats so you can focus on the fun, not the search. Use Game Time whenever you are looking for those tickets that are maybe tough to get at. And on top of that, Game Time has your back with lowest price guarantee, and they also will credit you 110% of the difference if you find a cheaper price. So that's the kind of peace of mind that makes this app a must-have. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets, download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So what time is it, guys? It's game time. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn, and we're going to go to a quick break because I got to tell you about home field. Give me 1 second. It's my old pals at home field. I'm wearing the home field shirt right now. UConn fans, gear up for the coziest, most stylish college apparel from home field. Perfect for game days or any day you want to rep the Huskies. I know it's getting cold, so maybe some sweatshirts, some hoodies. Shop now, wear your pride comfortably. I'm wearing my home field right now with this national championship sweatshirt. Maybe it'll bring us some luck as the year goes on. Home field apparel has officially launched their Black Friday sale. Listen, it's today, and I think it runs to December 3rd. So it's their most ambitious sale to date, 30% off site-wide. Yes, seriously, everything. With code BFCM24. Head over to homefieldapparel.com and use the code BFCMT4. From now until Tuesday, December 3rd for 30% off site-wide. That's double what you normally would get using my promo code. So go to homefieldapparel.com to check it out. All right, now you're back, and we're going to talk a little more about the Huskies, Dan Hurley, and some of the stuff that I saw this weekend as we were gearing up for Thanksgiving. Hope everyone had a really great Thanksgiving. I had a wonderful Thanksgiving with my family and friends. Got to see my cousin has moved down here, and so spent it with him and his family and his two kids and my kids. It was great. Really cool to see all the family and the cousins playing together. So in the midst of all this is why I really didn't respond to a lot of stuff that I saw on Twitter because I was busy, being a human being and actually, hanging out with family and friends. And trust me, the Huskies were talked about because everyone's from up north. And, my dad and my cousin Alex were talking about UConn and what they need to do. But let's get really real about this stupid, absolute circus surrounding Dan Hurley right now and the media narratives, because journos and all the people that make a living off of essentially writing puff pieces. I think Dan Wolkin wrote something. Jeff Goodman, all these people. It's gotten out of control. You've got outlets saying Hurley needs an intervention. Other claims are the refs are tired of his act. I definitely can see them targeting him because he's a pain in the ass out there. But it's wild to think that they wouldn't actually do their jobs just to prove a point that he is being abusive or whatever. And even Kentucky fans, of all people, Kentucky fans, suddenly claiming they dodged a bullet by not hiring Hurley. These are the same people who a year ago were practically begging for him to bring his talents to Lexington and telling us that we were going to lose our coach and that we're a poverty program and all this blah, 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 blah. Now they're out there saying they prefer Mark Pope, who was like their 10th choice, a coach who hasn't won an NCAA tournament game in almost a decade, and also, or hasn't ever won one. Pardon me. And that's not a no knock at Mark Pope. I think Mark Pope is going to be a great coach for them, and I'm actually happy they got him because I want Kentucky to be good. Because you know what, we beat you in the Final Four whenever we play you, so we'd hope for you to get to that level at some point again. So, best of luck. But you can't make this stuff up. Let's call it what it is. It's jealousy and virtue signaling. Oh, I wouldn't want my kid to go there, says the guy on Twitter who has no children or has a child that really has no athletic ability. Cool. Your opinion means nothing. These are fans and media folks who would trade a kidney to have had the run that UConn has had over the past 2 years. Back-to-back national titles in this era, give me a break. That's not something that you stumble into, especially when we're talking about a program that has clawed its way back to the top under Hurley's leadership. And yet here we are with people nitpicking every single thing he does and will continue to do while conveniently ignoring the bigger picture. Maui was ridiculous. And some of these narratives are almost every coach in that tournament was either teed up or dangerously close to it. How about when you saw Hubert Davis, one of the calmest, most soft-spoken, he doesn't even cuss, got a technical late in North Carolina's game against Michigan State, and it arguably cost them the game because the momentum was shifting towards North Carolina. But you don't hear anyone calling for Davis to tone it down or, man, I wish Hubert would really stop embarrassing the Tar Heels, right? Or suggesting that he's somehow embarrassing the sport. Yet with Hurley, it's somehow a referendum on his entire personality. Give me a break. Also, if college basketball had a brain in its collective system, whether it's the Jeff Goodmans of the world or the higher level, the perceived higher level college basketball analysts, Dan Hurley is the perfect villain. You use him, utilize him. Don't try to chop him down now. If this team is worse than what we thought, and it clearly is, then he'll do it on his own. So just take a step back and have fun. Watch it burn to the ground if that's what you think is going to happen. But also, let's address this idea that he needs to relax or change his ways. This is who Dan Hurley is. Passionate, fiery, unapologetically intense, authentic. That's what makes him successful. That's what's got UConn to the mountaintop in the first place. Asking him to fundamentally change who he is would be like telling someone with a high-achieving mentality to suddenly chill out because it makes other people uncomfortable. It's absurd. I'm sorry you're not on his level. I certainly am not. But I appreciate it. And here's the reality. People will always come for the loudest voice in the room when they're down. Heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? Hurley's boisterous, confident demeanor makes him an easy target when things aren't going well. But let's not pretend this is about his behavior. It's about the jealousy and insecurity of those who wish they had what UConn has built under him. And let's also not forget, those same critics were silent when Hurley was cutting down nets in April. When he was saying, number 6, baby. Although we did see some of that sniping starting early before the season. So, haters hate. The same folks who are saying, love you, Danny, but you need to calm down are the ones who fundamentally don't understand what it takes to succeed at the highest level. High achievers don't dim their light just because a guy with an avatar for a profile picture says he's embarrassed for them. Or Hurley sure as hell isn't going to lose his edge because Jeff Goodman, yes, the same Jeff Goodman who threatened a college kid over a documentary, says something snarky on his podcast. Hurley is built for this, and he doesn't need to answer to people who are clearly have no clue what it takes to win at this level consistently. And look, I get it. When you're as intense and outspoken as Hurley, people are going to come for you when you're down. That's the price you pay. And it's the price that the fans paid for piggybacking off of it. Don't jump ship now. Here's what I know. It's November 29th. This team will bounce back. They'll make adjustments. And when they do, the same people criticizing Hurley will now be the ones talking about how brilliant he is. What an amazing job he did to adjust. So let the rats jump ship. The true ride or die fans will be here all season, backing this team through thick and thin. You either, what's that quote from The Dark Knight? You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. That line perfectly encapsulates where UConn basketball finds itself today. College basketball, and I'm going to tell you why I think that. Because in '99, when Duke was in the finals and was 37-1, and UConn came along, and even though they were a 1 seed at 34 or 33-2 and had All-Americans on their team, nobody in their right mind thought UConn was going to win that game. And when they did, the entire country outside of, the pocket of Duke fans in New Jersey and in, LA, where apparently all Lakers fans are, Lakers, Duke, Yankees, I think that's the deal, right? Without that pocket of fans, everyone else in the country loved UConn beating Duke in K. Now, college basketball hasn't had a proper villain since the days of early 90s Duke or even mid-90s Kentucky under Rick Pitino. But make no mistake, UConn is here to fill that void. And honestly, I'm here for it because it's the ultimate validation of success. Everyone knows UConn runs college basketball and has for the last 25 years. So if there's resentment for him, if there's resentment for what he's doing or how he's recruiting, that's okay. UConn will run with it. Coming up, UConn plays Maryland Eastern Shores, who just got their brains beaten in by Arkansas. So this team should get a little confidence boost that it needs before the Baylor game next Tuesday. Let's talk about it. Coming up after the break. What's up, NFL fans? Get ready to tackle NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place the live bets on NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more in the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. All right, fans, let's talk about the next step for the Huskies here as they get ready to host Maryland Eastern Shore. On paper, this game it's a joke. They'll win by 30 or 40, but it's going to serve as a tune-up before the big clash of Baylor. And make no mistake about it, I think Dan Hurley is looking at this game on Saturday as a game that, what they call a get-right game in college football and other sports, but this is like a get-right moment for this team. Get back, clear your head. Not a lot of practice time leading into tomorrow's game, but you probably get one practice in, a shoot around, and you're back at it. And when you fall off your horse, you get back on it. And that's where we are. Sorry, my throat is bothering me. If you haven't heard, I sound like a young James Earl Jones today. So the Huskies are coming off that, humbling trip in Maui. Lost a lot of, confidence. There's hard lessons to be learned. We got Baylor on the horizon, another tough team that beat St. John's in the Bahamas, and I'm going to see if they can clean up some mistakes against a team that is, again, every team that they play. I know they just lost like 109-35 to Arkansas, but I guarantee you they're going to look better against us, not because we're bad or because we're this, that, and the other thing. It's because every team gets up for UConn now, and that's okay. But the weight of this back-to-back, I think, is weighing heavily on this team. So, I think the good news is UConn is likely going to drop out of the AP top 25 after this week. But that's also an opportunity. Being unranked could give this team the chance to kind of block out the noise, play with that chip on their shoulder, remind everyone why they're so highly regarded to begin with, right? So they're not going to challenge us tomorrow in the same way that a team like Baylor will, but that doesn't mean this game isn't important. It's actually probably the most important game on their schedule. The first game back after a trip in Maui. Can UConn come out strong and set the tone early? Can they clean up their defensive rotations, box out, avoid silly fouls? Can they get back to being disciplined, a gritty basketball team that's defined the best moments of under Dan Hurley? All remains to be seen. It's also an opportunity to get players back into rhythm. Let's see if Alex who's thankfully seems to be recovering well from his concussion scare in Maui. I don't know if that's a minor concussion or if it's something that they're going to monitor all season. But, I think him maybe sitting this out, or if he plays, kind of establishing himself as the heart and soul of this team. Then you have Liam and Solo, who have shown flashes of brilliance, but need to build on those performances and bring consistency on the defensive end. They're fine offensively. I know Liam didn't score a lot in the last game against Dayton, but he was dealing with the hip. And this is a chance for Dan Hurley to experiment with rotations. Again, tinker. Give some of these young players valuable minutes, and maybe there's a defensive switch. Maybe there's some kind of matchup zone to protect themselves against silly fouls. Because make no mistake, Baylor is looming. And that game will be, it's gonna be tough. Baylor's not a classic good team, but guess what, guys? If you watch any college basketball this weekend or this week during Feast Week, there's not a ton of really good teams. There's just some good players, and I think Auburn might be the best team in the country right now. They have the best player. I sure as hell think that if we played Auburn, they would have blown our doors off the way we're, presently constituted. But we'll see, So don't overlook this one. This is the calm before the storm, the kind of the reset button that this team needs. And then it's all about sink or swim after that. So let's see if they can rise to the occasion. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn, guys. Stay locked on. Stay connected. Make sure you're following this team no matter what happens. And we will always be here to cover it. Go Huskies.